Arms! That's right, I'm talking about arms! Really, what is there to say about this game that the title can't? With everyone being stuck at home and Nintendo having confirmed that the next character coming to Smash Bros. Soon is from ARMS, the stars aligned for me to visit this game for my very first review. So please, join me as I punch my way through the competition in this review on a video game with the most apt title imaginable. ARMS! When it comes to the story of ARMS, Nintendo is basically just like, here's a game about people with stretchy arms, play it! But why do these people have stretchy arms? Who knows? Why do only some people have this stretchy arm ability? Who cares? And how come some characters have actual stretchy arms while others fight with mechs, robots, or even their hair? Shut up and play the damn game! With ARMS, story isn't really important. There isn't even a story mode to play through. Instead, there's a Grand Prix mode that works like a standard arcade mode in other fighting games. All that being said, there is still a rich backstory to ARMS if you choose to look into it and find it. It's presented through the gallery mode as well as some of the pre-release marketing that was done. So, I'm going to try and briefly sum up the backstory to ARMS. So one day, a guy woke up and discovered that he had gained this strange ability to stretch his arms like a slinky. The seeming mutation began to spread, and it was found that there were quite a few people developing this ability to stretch their arms. Not everyone gained this ability, however. Think more like a traditional superhero universe, rather than a My Hero Academia universe. Although the arms ability has started spreading to more people. In fact, if I may go off on a tangent for a sec, there are a lot of similarities between the ARMS fighters in comic books. For example, there are fighters who have the ability just naturally in their arms. Then there are those who gain these powers through the use of technology. There are some who seemingly use magic to control their arms, and there are even some that are man-made. Anyways, people who gain the ARMS ability have a few special traits. First and foremost, there is the obvious, stretching of the arms that would probably be the first thing to stand out. But what they're made of is actually pretty interesting. They tend to take the form of something that's close to the heart of the person with the ability, or even just things lying around, like, say, ribbons. Another interesting trait that these people have is that their irises develop a swirl inside them, which is what led to the initial idea that eyes might have something to do with controlling the arm ability. While all of this baffled the world at large, certain scientists were intrigued by the phenomenon and created the ARMS Labs in conjunction with the competition to help fund the research of these abilities. After creating masks that allowed those affected to control how and when their arms would stretch, the ARMS League was born. Competitors were offered a chance to battle it out for the title of champion, and as the player, you take control of one of these challengers as they try to work their way to the top. That's basically the gist of the story in ARMS. There's actually a lot more going on behind the scenes than this, such as each character's personal motivations for entering the tournament, and some other nefarious plots that may be going on within the ARMS laboratories. But that's mostly extra, and you can find more about this in the gallery menu. The real purpose of the game lies not in its storytelling, but in its unique and fun gameplay. When ARMS first came out, a lot of people were somewhat critical of it. They saw it as a pretty fun little game, but they didn't seem to think that there was a lot of depth to it. The fighting system is, indeed, a bit strange, and seems almost like just an updated version of Wii Sports Boxing. But, with the impending release of an ARMS character in Smash, more people came back to the game to finally give it a fair shot, and they discovered that there is actually a surprising amount of depth in the combat, and plenty of fun to be had. ARMS is a non-traditional 3D arena fighter. So what does all that gobbledygook mean, really? Well, fighter refers to it being a fighting game, obviously. An arena fighter is just a special type of 3D fighting game where the arena can affect matches, such as allowing for rainouts. And the non-traditional part of that name refers to the wholly unique gameplay and control scheme of ARMS. As the name might imply, ARMS places a heavy focus on the use of the character's, well, arms. As such, each is assigned a major button in traditional control schemes, both a face button and a trigger. You can freely control each arm after launching it by moving the joystick, within reason. You also can shield, dash, and block. This is all fairly intuitive, actually, aside from the guard being placed on pushing down the movement stick, which feels a little weird at first, but you get used to it. However, all of this goes out the window whenever you're using motion controls. Then, absolutely everything is controlled by the way you move your set of Joy-Cons. This works fine with punching, but movement and blocking begins to feel a little awkward, as you have to move both Joy-Cons whatever direction you want to move, or move them together to block, and oftentimes it can be misread by the Switch as movement when blocking or blocking when you're moving. That said, if you're playing with a friend and both of you are using motion controls, it can be a pretty fun way to play for a while. Nice little distraction. Once you've gotten a grasp of how to play the game, ARMS offers many different modes in which to play with. Let's start with the aforementioned Grand Prix. Now, this mode allows you to bring the character of your choice through the ARMS League and get them to their dream of winning the prize money. Each Grand Prix consists of 10 matches, 8 of them being fights, and the other 2 being minigame style matches chosen from ARMS' 3 other match types. After playing through and beating 9 other randomly selected opponents from the lineup of characters, you come up against the reigning champion, Max Brass. He's arguably one of the most overpowered characters, combining aspects of Springman and his own ability of Permacharge towards the end of his lifespan. That said, he's still a pretty fair match, mainly just being difficult due to his increased AI ability. And you're also allowed an unlimited number of retries, so if you don't get it the first time, you can just keep going with no penalty, really. After defeating Max Brass, you are crowned champion of the league, at least on lower difficulties. On the highest difficulties, you are actually pitted against one of 2 secret final bosses. The first is Headlock, the 4-armed head that attaches itself to Max Brass, giving him a total of 6 arms after beating Max the first time. Or, you might fight Dr. Coyle, the mad head scientist of ARMS Labs who created Headlock, who knocks out Max before you can even fight him the first time and takes his place. She also gets Headlock after beating her the first time, except instead of it being latched onto her without her consent, she is controlling the damn beast. These matches are truly the most difficult in the game, as the extra arms make it difficult to find an opening. You need to be on the top of your game when it comes to them. Play well enough, however, and you'll take down the head, or the doctor, leaving you as the champion, and the credits roll. Now, the place where ARMS truly exceeds is in its multiplayer. There are many different modes that you can choose to play from, including online for fun and for ranked matches. But on-the-couch multiplayer is by far my favorite part of the game. Now, sure, you have to deal with split screen because the camera angle has to be behind your character in order to have accurate control of your arms, but this really doesn't detract from the gameplay at all. Instead, it just harkens back to a time when you would call your friends over and you'd play N64 on the couch together. It's not a hindrance. You're allowed to pick amongst any of the match types ARMS has in multiplayer. There are the regular matches, which pit you against your friend or an AI of your specified level in a basic match. Pretty self-explanatory, really. There are also team matches, where you team up with one other person or a computer to take on another 2-man team. The caveat here is that you are tethered to your teammate the entire time. So if they get thrown, you get thrown, and if they get knocked down, you have to drag around their lifeless body for the rest of the match. It can be a fun, small party game, but not for more than a few matches, really, unlike Smash Bros. Then there are the special matches. There is V-Ball, a volleyball game using your specialized stretchy arms. It is super fun to get a spike off on your opponents in this mode, and it can be a pretty fun small diversion from the regular gameplay, as instead of hitting a person, you're just hitting a ball back and forth. There is Hoops, a basketball-style game where the whole point is to get a grab off on your opponents to throw them in the basket. This is arguably the most basic of the extra modes, as grabbing from any distance is pretty much a guaranteed basket. It's really just left up to chance whether or not they'll fall in, so it essentially boils down to a mode that plays like a regular match, except you can only score points by throwing. Then there is Skill Shot, a mode where you have to hit as many targets as possible to score the most points. This is definitely my least favorite mode, as if you are playing a Grand Prix with arms picked specifically for fights, it can make it damn near impossible to win this match type. Basically, for this there are better arms than others. Mobility is preferred over power. Next is a mode called Headlock Scramble. Now this is one of the most fun extra modes available in my opinion. You are actually given the powers of Headlock, extra arms and all, as you, against another player or a computer, fight over the dastardly headwear. The rest plays like a regular match, but it is super fun to turn the powers of this bullshit boss on another opponent. Lastly, there is 1-on-100, and for this mode the gameplay is basically in the name. It is you against 100 weak enemies. They all go down in one hit except for the last one, who operates as a Helix with a headlock on. This is an okay mode. It's very reminiscent of the modes in Smash Bros. Where you also fight a lot of enemies. Now all of this leads me to one of the most intriguing and deepest parts of the game, and that is the customization available. You see, each character in ARMS has special abilities, from healing while guarding, to stretching their bodies, to slow motion activation, and even the ability to move while guarding. None of their abilities apply much to offense, however, as you are allowed to pick 3 different pairs of arms to enter any given match. This is where customization becomes paramount. You may have noticed that in the 1-on-100 match, each of the 100 was fighting with a different set of arms. This is because each character can use every set of arms in the game, so it is up to the player to determine the right combination of signature character abilities and arms that work for them. Each character has 3 standard arms that come with them, but more can be unlocked by playing a target-like minigame and spending the currency you earn from playing the game at large. Each arm has 3 different parts to it: a shoot pattern, an element, and a weight. Shoot patterns can vary from straight to curved to shield to laser, and each operates completely differently. They play a big part in the game where mobility is concerned, as each arm moves differently and hits in a different pattern. Elements determine what happens when a charged attack lands, such as ice freezing the opponent, and this can have a big impact on the outcome of a battle. Weight helps determine the speed of an arm, as well as what will happen if 2 arms collide. The way that this plays out in a match is that there are some arms that are heavier, they move slower, and they don't have as much maneuverability, but if they should come in contact with a lighter arm that has more maneuverability, it can break directly through that without missing a beat. All in all, there are too many combinations to count for loadouts, and that is what makes ARMS a truly, continually fun game to play. Bored of one way of playing? Just switch up what arms you're using. It'll completely shake up your playstyle, even with the same character. For me, I like to use Lollipop with these nunchucks, stamps, and shield. It's her standard loadout, but this allows for multiple loadouts that I use in certain situations, such as using my shield arm in combination with the nunchucks to block heavy arms while maneuvering my nunchucks around the shield. As if all of this wasn't enough, ARMS also has a built-in trophy system called badges that you get for accomplishing any task. Each badge nets you a load of coins, which you can spend on the ARMS getting minigame or on artwork, which helps reveal some of the backstory of the game. Each badge can also be displayed on your user stats page for online multiplayer, and they're great incentives to just keep playing the game. Although you really don't need much, because the gameplay in this game is so fantastic, it's become one of my favorite games on the Switch. So what do I think of all this? Well, all in all, ARMS is an excellently polished game. The gameplay sounds a little bit convoluted when you first hear about it, but when you actually get into it, it's completely intuitive, and there are strategies that you actually develop over time that help you get really good at the game. All of this holds up to Nintendo's high standard of quality, as well as providing you with constant rewards for just playing. The badges, the getting of arms, the backstory that's unlocked through the gallery, it all just encourages you to keep going through this gameplay loop. And as you keep going, you keep getting better, and it's just more satisfying to give someone a 1-2 punch. This game is not about getting a deep and compelling story. Instead, it's about just having fun with the game. With that, it follows one of the main axioms of Nintendo that Shigeru Miyamoto coined himself, which is why I've always loved them, and that is that, above all, the game needs to be fun to play, because it is, after all, a game. The rest of it is secondary. It doesn't exactly matter that the story isn't there in ARMS, because it's just so fun to play through the Grand Prix with a new character and a new loadout of arms. If I have one complaint about this game, it is when you're using motion controls. I'm a huge supporter of motion controls. I think they provide a good, fun alternative to standard control schemes most of the time. While the motion controls in ARMS are fun for a game session with friends, they're just not ideal for competitive play of any kind. This isn't really an issue if you're playing in handheld mode or you're using a Switch Pro controller, but it does become an issue when all you have are a set of Joy-Con and you don't have a Joy-Con grip. This automatically activates motion controls, and you're not allowed to turn them off, so you can just play with the buttons. The motion controls will only turn off if the Joy-Con are attached to the system or a Joy-Con grip. This was really only an issue when I was playing with friends when I first got my Switch, however. See, I only had 2 sets of Joy-Con, but I only had one grip, the one that came with the Switch, which meant that one of us was always losing because we had to use the motion controls, while the other person had the benefit of using the buttons and the triggers and the crisp gameplay. The game is still well worth the price of admission, however. That's really my only complaint, and if you are playing by yourself, as you probably are in this time, or you have a Pro controller, the gameplay is just crisp and clean. Although there is no story mode, there is a wealth of content that comes within this package, thanks to the extensive customization provided, and the numerous number of modes that provide you with different gameplay styles if you're getting a little bored of the standard one-on-one style of gameplay that Grand Prix has. If you're willing to dig into the game a bit, you can even uncover a pretty interesting backstory to this weird world of people with stretchy arms. If you'd like a quantified grade, I'd honestly have to give it a 9 out of 10. There are only a few issues with the Joy-Con motion controls. It doesn't really seem as though those will ever be fixed, but ARMS is an extremely well-made, well-polished, and fun game to play by yourself or with friends.